Hi everyone, it's Wellgood and it's a brief retelling of a movie, My Teacher's Wife. Don't forget to leave a like, subscribe and hit the bell. Tod Boomer is a senior at Southport High School. Along with his girlfriend Kirsten and his friend Paul, they open the envelopes with the results of their entrance exams to Boston University. Though all three have passed the exams, math teacher Roy Miller refuses to sign Tod's character reference for admission for failing the tests. While sitting on the shore of the lake, Tod draws caricatures. Then suddenly the guy hears a scream on the other side of the lake that scares him, for which a girl named Vicky apologizes. She sometimes wants to scream so badly that she can't contain her emotions. Tod thinks it's quite normal and screams in return, but the girl has already disappeared. In the evening, the friends go to a party to one of their classmates. While Paul tries to pick up the girls, Kirsten calls Tod for a walk in the park. There, sitting on a bench and covered with a blanket, the couple begins to kiss. But Kirsten notices a condom in Tod's hand and takes offense at the guy, because that's not why she invited him. At this very time, Paul tries to hide from an annoying nun. Noticing Tod driving the car, Paul jumps in and asks him to get out of the place as quickly as possible. On the way, the guys meet Vicky, who's standing on the side of the road next to a broken car. Approaching the guys, Vicky recognizes Tod, whom she scared back at the lake. The guys take the girl with them, offering their help. Paul tries to compliment Vicky and says she has a very cool car, but it turns out that the car belongs to her husband. She tells the guys that she's angry at him, because he was not smart enough to put a spare wheel in the trunk. The trio stops at a diner, where Vicky calls for a tow truck. It won't arrive for another hour, so the guys treat the girl to ice cream. Leaving the diner, Vicky pays for herself and the guys, to which Tod asks her to at least allow them to pay for the trip. The girl quickly counts it all in her head and names the amount, after which she notes that it's all the credit to the math department. Heading to Vicky's car, Tod talks about his math problems and how his life will be ruined if he can't retake the test. The girl, however, is confident that things will get better for him. Bringing Vicky to her car, Tod tries to convince the girl to take a math class with him. It will save his future life. Vicky promises to think about it. The girl returns home and her husband turns out to be none other than Roy Miller, the same math teacher who flunked Tod's test. As for the boy himself, he's met at home by his father. Jack is disappointed that they put so much time and effort into getting him into Harvard, and the boy can't even pass the school test. Tod says that he needs a tutor, to which his father promises him to help find one. But the guy is quick to boast that he's already done that, which makes the father proud. Tod comes to the lake where he first met Vicky. The girl appears and starts unbuttoning her dress, saying that the answers to all the questions are somewhere on her body. Then out of nowhere, some man with a gun shows up behind him, yelling that she is his wife. But fortunately, it all turns out to be just a dream. At lunchtime, Tod shares the good news with Paul. Vicky did call back. In chemistry class, Kirsten apologizes for the night in the park. She freaked out a little. She just needs a little time and Tod will get what he wanted. After class, Vicky comes to Tod's house. His parents left, leaving Tod and Vicky to study. The kid tells Paul about this the next day, while helping the guy move out of his parents' house and into the backyard house. Even though they only did math with Vicky, the kid still wanted to smoke a cigar in the end. The classes with Vicky are not in vain and are paying off. Tod tells the girl about this and invites her to another class tonight. Just after talking to Vicky on the phone, the guy meets with Kirsten. Afraid that the girl might get jealous, Tod lies that his tutor is a fat, elderly woman who's constantly drooling. Kirsten reminds him that tonight is their traditional dinner with friends, which unfortunately Tod can't attend because of his class. Still, he promises to figure something out. While the boy is studying with Vicky, Kirsten comes to Paul's diner. Even though Tod isn't with them, the girl can't leave a friend all alone. After a while, Tod arrives at the diner with Vicky, who'd agreed to give him a lift after class. Kirsten, realizing that Tod had been lying to her about the tutor's appearance, leaves the diner resenting the guy. Tod meets Paul, from whom he tries to find out if Kirsten said anything about him. The protagonist admits that he did a bad thing for cheating on the girl, but Vicky is quite something. Tod leaves and after a while, Kirsten comes up to Paul, asking if Tod said anything about her. The girl thinks Paul knows everything but covers for his friend, to which the guy answers that Kirsten is also his friend. That brings a smile to the girl's face. In the math class, Roy Miller draws a problem on the board and asks Tod for a solution, who calmly gives the correct answer. The teacher is surprised, so he says that Tod's recommendation for admission to university already looks much better. The guy tells Vicky about this, sharing his progress. Then he invites the girl to yet another class. In response, she suggests that this time he himself comes to visit her. She wants to show him her sculptures. So Tod comes to Vicky's house. The girl shows him her masterpieces, and when he sees them, the guy doesn't understand why she keeps everything in her garage and doesn't show anyone anything. Vicky is afraid that everyone will think she's crazy. At least her husband thinks so. The girl admits that she and her husband don't get along much, so she enjoys the company of Tod, for whom Vicky has a gift. Seeing what the girl made with her own hands, Tod thanks her for the gift and kisses her on the lips. From the surprise, the girl is lost, but doesn't let the guy do it again. They move into the house where Vicky starts flirting with the guy, and then they do kiss. Vicky climbs on top of the guy and takes off her dress. You probably understand what happens next. Tod tells Paul about this, whom he visits in the middle of the night after he finishes his classes with Vicky. There isn't much joy on Paul's face, however, so the hero assumes that the friend is just jealous of him. Tod goes home and Paul opens the closet, from where Kirsten has been listening in on the conversation. At school during lunch, Tod walks over to the table where Kirsten is sitting. The girl defiantly collects her things and stands up. Tod doesn't understand what's going on. Then the girl shouts to the entire dining room about the relationship between Tod and the tutor. The guy only told Paul about this, so he assumes it must have been him who spilled the beans. But Paul admits that Kirsten was in the closet and heard everything herself. Tod is angry at his friend because he thinks he didn't warn him on purpose, because he secretly likes Kirsten. Their scolding is stopped by Roy Miller, who makes the boys watch his car parked in front of the school as punishment. Paul and Tod go outside and recognize the same Corvette that Vicky was parked next to the night they picked her up. The buddies realize that Roy Miller is Vicky's husband. After learning that Roy is going fishing, Tod rushes to Vicky. The guy is not happy that the girl has not told him anything about the fact that her husband is Tod's teacher. Vicky didn't pay any attention to it at all. The guy doesn't understand how she could marry such a tyrant as Roy, but according to the girl, he wasn't always like that. Vicky says that Tod has better leave, but the guy starts kissing her. Little does he know, at this time Roy is already returning from fishing. Hearing noises in the garage, he decides to check out what's going on. As Roy approaches the garage, he yells Vicky. Hearing his voice, Tod hides among the sculptures, and Vicky pretends to be sewing something with an angle grinder. While Roy cleans the fish, Tod hides elsewhere. On his way out of the garage, Roy asks Vicky for a printer. He says there's a bright student in his class, Tod Boomer, and Roy would like to print a recommendation for him to get into Harvard. Vicky promises to find a printer. When Roy walks out, Tod quietly leaves the garage. At school, Roy approaches Tod and shows the kid his school notebook that he found in Vicky's garage. Tod was hoping that Roy wouldn't find out about him and Vicky. The boy panics, thinking that Roy knows about his relationship with his wife and says that he's made a terrible mistake. To which Miller, showing the test results, says that in fact there are only two. Finding the notebook, Roy realizes that Tod is doing math with Vicky. Miller promises to write Tod's recommendation for admission to university, then shakes the boy's hand. In math class, Roy sets Tod as an example to the other students, justifying his cruelty toward the young boys. After all, it is his treatment of them that will make them learn better. Roy is approached by Tod, who thinks his cruelty to the students is unwarranted. People do not deserve to be treated that way at all. That's what Roy's wife Vicky told him. Tod heads for the exit, but Miller stops him with a question. Did you sleep with Vicky? Unable to help himself, Tod confesses to everything. Jumping into his car, Roy rushes home. Tod tries to warn Vicky, but the girl is busy and doesn't hear the phone ring. When Roy arrives, he starts smashing everything in the garage, and that's when Tod shows up. Roy thinks the guy is a genius. Thanks to Vicky, he got better at math, then slept with her, and got a recommendation for Harvard from her husband. Then Roy knocks Tod out. The guy comes to his senses and apologizes to Vicky for what happened. But the girl is even grateful to him. She should have broken up with Roy a long time ago. To Tod's question what she's about to do next, Vicky tells him that she'll go to New York. Maybe there something will work out with her sculptures. The girl sees the boy off and finally gives him a recommendation for university. Tod leaves Vicky and goes for an interview, promising to visit her in New York in the near future. At the interview, Tod is asked why he wants to go to Harvard. The boy says it's his father's dream because it's the best university, but Tod himself believes that it's not what he needs. Returning home, Tod admits to his parents that he doesn't want to go to Harvard. His dream is art school. Then the boy goes to the diner where they constantly gather with his friends. Calling Kirsten for a walk, Tod apologizes for hurting the girl, but begs her to never cross him off her friend list. After a while, the friends sit on the dock and discuss who they will become in 10 years. Tod thinks Paul will be working on his supercomputer in 10 years, and Kirsten will be publishing her first collection of popular poetry. Tod himself, in Paul's opinion, will be shouting "Next in line, please!" at McDonald's. That's how the movie ends.